It's the 10th best-selling vehicle in Australia, and after spending a week with the Hyundai i30, it's not hard to see why. The design of the 2021 i30 hatch is not radically different to last year's model, although it is a completely different car to the sedan, which is actually called an Elantra in most other markets. From the sedan though, we get a new front grille, and also I really like these new driving lights that double as turn indicators. Not much has changed at the back either. We've got the same size boot, still 395 litres, and it's not powered, so I've got to remember to lift it. And you can add an extra 900 litres or so with the rear seats down. This middle-of-the-range i30 Elite model comes with middle-of-the-range wheels. They start at 16s, work up to 18s. This car has 17s in a very nice contrasting silver grey colour. The Elite gets the i30's standard 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, which outputs 120 kilowatts of power and 203 newton metres of torque. It's really good for around town, but if you're after a little bit more excitement, then you might want to get yourself into one of the top spec N-line models. They come with a 1.6 litre turbo. Inside the i30 Elite, and it does feel more polished and a bit more premium than it did before. And the main reason for that is this giant 10.25 inch centre console screen. And this just leaves competitors in the dust. I mean, especially Honda with that tiny little 7-inch screen inside the Civic. Yes, I know there's a new model coming, but it's not here yet. But it doesn't have a patch on this. The Elite also comes with native navigation, digital radio, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. The only thing that's not so great about it is the image from the reversing camera, which is stretched and distorted, and it makes getting in and out of a tight spot a little bit tricky, like my garage at home. So that's a point for improvement. Twin zone climate controls, much the same as last year's model. We've got a storage bin here up the front with a USB input and a 12-volt outlet. We've got a new look gear shifter here, which has a bit of a sporty sort of look to it. A few blank buttons down here on the center console, which I don't love, but in high spec models you do get things like seat heating, which this car unfortunately misses out on. A couple of cup holders, a not very big storage bin, but there's another 12-volt outlet in there. The sound system is a 7-speaker Infinity system, which we've seen in other Hyundais, and it's actually really good. There's a subwoofer in the back as well. We've got an all-new instrument cluster that again is completely different to the one found in the i30 sedan. It's probably a bit more similar to the ones we've seen in some of the more recent Hyundai SUVs. For reasons best known to Mr. and Mrs. Hyundai, they've left the tachometer as an analog dial while the speedo is digital, and we've also got analog temperature and fuel gauges. The steering wheel, much the same as last year's model. It's a really good steering wheel with plenty of controls on it that aren't too hard to use. And the seats, which are leather and actually quite comfortable, no lumbar support. And the seating position's nice and low in the cabin. I can't really see to the edge of the bonnet, but I do have good visibility in the blind spots and also through the rear vision mirror. The back seat is one area though where the Honda Civic kicks the i30's butt. There is a lot more room in one of those than there is in this, with my knees behind the seat in front of me in my own seating position. I'm 190 centimeters tall, so yes, I know I am tall, as people keep reminding me, but I've got my knees either side of the seat here. Not really all that comfortable, I have to say. Good headroom though, I'm not touching the ceiling, which is nice. We've got rear air vents with the dual zone climate control controlled from the front, but unfortunately no rear USB chargers or 12-volt power outlets back here. We do have an armrest though, with a couple of cup holders. So look, if you're a kid or you're a bit shorter than me, you'll be fine in the back seat. Me, not so much. All right, let's go for a drive in the i30 Elite. The 2-litre engine in this is perfect for daily driving, really. It does everything you need it to do. There's ample power. I actually did my driving test when I was 17 years old. No, I'm not having a collision. These cars always think I'm going to have a collision when I'm not. I think I'm an unsafe driver because of the number of alerts that go off in these cars, but I like to think that it's actually just the cars being overly sensitive and nothing to do with my driving. So I actually did my driving test when I was 17 years old. I got it on my first go, by the way. A bit proud of that. In a Hyundai Excel, and it was the very first one of those bubble shapes. And look, even back then, it wasn't a terribly impressive car. I remember it being underpowered and very sparse on the interior. And now, 26 years later, it's just interesting to see how much further we've come in car technology, because this car has everything and it's at about an equivalent price point for the time. One thing my kids really like about this car, and indeed most of the new Hyundais and Kias, is that they come with the sounds of nature. So whenever you hit that media button, by default, you'll start hearing the sounds of a busy cafe or a rainforest or the ocean. It's actually very relaxing. Oh, now let's see how the i30 goes, bringing us to a complete stop with the adaptive cruise control. That was good. And took off by itself too. I'm impressed. 3 drive modes in the i30, Eco, Sport and Normal. Eco allows you to drive more economically, Normal is, well, normal, and Sport, it does make the accelerator a little more happy, but it just seems to rev the engine unnecessarily, so you're getting a lot of noise, but not a heck of a lot of action, so I prefer Normal. But it's a very smooth, easy car to drive with a very comfortable ride and holds its own amongst anything else on the market. It's not hard to see why Hyundai sells so many of these. Now again, that distorted image from the reversing camera just makes getting into this garage that much harder. I know there's room, but if I look at the screen, it looks like there's not much at all. But this car has rear parking sensors and also a graphic there to show me how close I am to things, and that helps. The i30 is the second best selling passenger car in Australia, just behind the Toyota Corolla. And to be honest, I think it's a much better car to drive, and at $34,000, it's really good value too. But if I was in the market for one of these, I'd have serious consideration to dropping an extra $4,000 and getting myself a top-of-the-line N-line model with that 1.6 litre turbo. It's just a much better car to drive.